morning, everybody. Hope we're all doing well. Welcome to the fifth in the Demystifying Marketing series of webinars. So it's Get Found Online through Google today with Lee. So I'm Rich from Agency for Good. I think most people know me by now. So rather than me rambling away, I'm going to pass over to Lee. I'm going to sit in the background, but please get involved, ask questions as we go. I'm sure Lee will be able to answer everything, and no matter how hard they are as well. Cool. Over to
Cheers, Rich. Yeah.
No worries, mate. Over to you, Lee.
Yeah, so hi everybody. Hope you're doing well this morning. So today we're going to go through Google, so some different tactics. I'm going to show tactics that we've used in the agency for clients and that we've had success with. We're going to have a little look at Google My Business and Google Ads, as well as organic SEO. Now, this talk will focus mostly on organic SEO. The reason being is I want you to get the most out of Google as you possibly can. And search still gets the majority of clicks. So for me, it's the most important really to show you guys how to use and how to use it to your advantage. So what we're going to start off first is the basics of SEO and what the difference is between on-page and off-page SEO. So maybe you know the difference currently, maybe you don't. I'm sure there's a mix of different knowledge in the chat. So this looks really overwhelming as a chart. It's not so bad. I'm going to explain it the best I can, and in a few different slides we'll look at kind of some particulars in a bit more detail. But on-page SEO is essentially all of the things that sit on your website, okay? And off-page SEO is stuff that is outside of your website. So if you're thinking about your website, you're thinking of meta information, so that's your SEO title, your meta descriptions, and other types of meta, for like LinkedIn posts and that kind of thing. Alt tags for images are really important for accessibility as well as for SEO. Schema, which is a really great piece of code you can implement onto your websites. Content, which is really good and important, so make sure your content is really relevant, in-depth, and fantastic. Blog posts, so supporting it with blog posts and further content. Site speed is a really big one, especially if you do e-commerce. But it's really important for everybody. Nobody likes slow websites, so please make sure that your website is nice and fast to load, and you've got no problems there. You might need a developer for help with your site speed because it can get quite in-depth and quite difficult. H1s, H2s are your tags on top of the page, so for your titles. And this is a biggie. It's thinking about internal and external linking, and we're going to cover this in a bit more detail throughout the presentation. It's something which people do not think about enough. So how are you linking to your own content on your website? How are you passing link equity inside of your own website, and how are you getting link equity into your pages? So I'll talk a little bit about that, what link equity is and how you can get some yourself. Site structure. So that kind of follows on nicely from internal linking. So is your site nice and easy to use? Does it flow naturally? Does it feel good to use? Nobody likes frustrating sites where you're clicking on pages and you can't find things. That's not good for anybody. And SSL, so security is really important. And Google made this a ranking factor a couple of years ago. So if you haven't got an SSL installed at the moment, then please get one installed as soon as you can, because it massively affects your conversion rate on contact forms, especially. So off-page SEO is essentially link building, but it does include a few other things that I've mentioned here. So citations is a type of link building. I'll talk about that a little bit later on. Building reviews onto your pages, thinking about your prominence online. Local signals as well. So are you in local newspapers, local news stories? Do you sponsor any local football teams, for example? Are you involved in any community projects that link to you, especially if you cover a local area? Really important. Relevancy signals, guest posting, blogging on other people's websites. Google My Business, which we'll cover. Social signals, which is social media, which Rich does a lot on actually. and that can have an indirect impact on your SEO and how well you rank, by adding to your prominence. PR, which is really important and kind of goes hand in hand with SEO nowadays. And brand awareness. So what you're doing offline marketing wise. Now, when you think about SEO and you think about your website, you're probably not thinking about the value of your brand and building that value of your brand, but you 100% should be, because if you've got branded searches alongside more generic searches, then it's giving really good signals to Google that you're a leader in your industry, and that can increase your ranking in Google too. So really important to think about that. A good way to increase brand awareness is things like flyers, business cards, sponsoring events, going to events, webinars even, driving those branded terms. So on-page SEO, we've already covered this a little bit. So it's everything that is on your website and that you're completely in control of. Technical SEO is the stuff that you might need a developer for. So that includes stuff like your SSL setup, your H1s, H2s, schema, alt tags, meta information, site speed. But all the rest of on-page SEO, content, site structure, internal linking, you can really easily do it yourself. So think about when you're developing your website, if you're developing a new one, make sure it's really quick. Make sure the basics are done well, so the structures works for users and it's what users are looking for. Do some keyword research beforehand. Think about crawl depth. So a lot of people are not aware of crawl depth, but it's really, really important. So when we're talking about site structure and making it easy to use, one thing that we're talking about is crawl depth there. So how many clicks do people need to make to get to the page in question from your homepage? So if you've got a crawl depth, for example, of 6 or 7 or 8, then that's getting really difficult to find that content for a user. And if it's that hard to find for a Google crawl bot or a Moz bot, that's going to be super difficult for your customers to find. So just think about your internal linking and your crawl depth. Okay, it's really, really crucial. You don't really want anything above 4 or 3. For bigger sites, you might expect it to be a little bit bigger. And think about your internal linking.
I checked too, but it looks like it isn't a valid phone number.
That's my Google Home speaker. I said Google. There we go. Off-page SEO. So this is about link building. So we covered this a little bit in the intro. So when we talk about off-page SEO, the main part of off-page SEO is link building. Getting links into your website and getting the right kind of links into your website is really, really, really important. And we've seen it time and time again where people do not get the right kind of links in the website, and it causes so many issues for them down the line and a lot of work for an agency to fix it. So think about quality links. Okay, don't be buying links off things like Fiverr. We've seen that before with clients. Please do not do it. And make sure if you are working with an agency that it's a trustworthy agency that you can trust to get the job done right. So these are just some examples of links that you can get and some strategies. And what I'm going to do is go through a strategy that we used next to actually acquire some links. So you can see the process. So you know what you need to do, and then you can know the process that you can take to actually acquire those really high level kind of good links that you need into your website. So citations are really easy, and there's services such as Bright Local, which allow you to build those links, and they build it for you for a reasonable cost. Guest blogging. So are you an expert in your industry? Could you be a thought leader? Can you do guest blogging to earn links back to the website? It's a really effective way to earn links. Think about content marketing. So think about creating engaging content that creates a discussion, content that is valuable to your customers or to your users, or valuable to the editorial's user base or customer base. Think about tailoring your content for the different audiences. Pardon me. Accreditations, really easy to get. You'll get them naturally in your business. Okay, so you'll start being, maybe a part of the Accredited Architects Association, for example. Get a link from them. Those links are fantastic. If you're a plumber or SMEs like that, they'll all be part of like the Corgi kind of register. So get links from those places again, or Gas Safe register, sorry. If you're a charity, you might be on part of the charity commission. So can you get a link from them possibly, or a link unlinked mention? 100% you could. Think about strategic partnerships. So if you have partnerships offline with other businesses that you work with or collaborate with, could you ask them for a link? Would they give you a link? Yes, I think they probably would. But how are you going to acquire that link? Are you going to have a partnership page? Are you going to create some really great content, which then links through to your website? Think about the strategies behind these links and how to acquire them. Okay. Social links is another one. So really easy to get Facebook shares and likes. Okay, and link through to your website. Sometimes people forget to do that. Google My Business. So you're doing Google My Business posts, which again we'll cover a little bit later on. And the creme de la creme of links and link building is links from a .gov or a .ac.uk or a .edu. The reason that they're the creme de la creme is because that top level domain, so the .gov part of the domain, is really authoritative. You can only get those domains if you are a government entity. So if you can get a link from one of those entities, it's massive for helping your SEO as part of a more comprehensive strategy, but really, really difficult. But just think, if you have relationships with local councils, could you get a link from them? Quite possibly. And that link will be worth a lot for you and your business or charity. So when we're thinking about links and acquiring those links, every link has a value and they have different values. Okay. And with links, you have do follow and no follow. Do follow passes links. It's saying, yes, I 100% trust this source. I know this person intimately, let's say. So it passes a lot of link equity. All right. You're passing your trust to that other website. You're saying, yeah, Google, I'm putting my reputation on the line. I 100% trust this source. It's not a strange website like sometimes you can find online. 100% genuine. There's no scamming, no phishing. It's a fantastic website. Now, if you give a no follow link, then you're going, listen, this is a good source, but I don't 100% trust it. It might be good, it might not, but I'm going to protect my reputation. So what they do is they give a no follow link. Many editorials will give no follow links because they want to protect their reputation. And when you have a no follow link, it passes little to no link equity. All right, so they can be easy to acquire. Citation sites, for example, majority of them are no follow links. So if you can acquire a really good do follow link, that can really help your SEO for your website. So I quite like this as a visual and a way to explain link equity. All right, so we've got currency here, so UK currency. So left-hand side is a penny, right-hand side is a £2 coin. So if we're thinking about the value of links, a cheap directory link, it might be worth a penny or 2p. It's not worth a lot to your overall link equity of your website, your domain authority. But if you could get a do follow link from a quality.edu or a .gov, then that link could be worth, £2 in this example. It's worth a lot to your SEO, a lot of link equity, and can increase what's called a domain authority score, which helps you to rank. So I quite like that visual. I think it's a really good way to visualize links and to think about the different value, because not every link is equal. And actually, you can have negative value links. So we talked previously about the spammy tactics that are used online sometimes. Those can actually have a really negative impact on your SEO and your rankings. So just think about that. So I mentioned domain authority before. So when someone links to your website, they pass link equity, like we've discussed. Now, the higher number of good links they have themselves, the more equity they pass. So if a website has a domain authority of 60 and it passes a do follow link, then it passes a lot of link equity across to you. Okay. The more links you have, the higher a domain authority score will be. It's a MOS metric. And that domain authority is your probability of ranking for a search term. So the higher it is out of 100, it's a logarithmic scale. So it's easy to go from 0 to 1. It's very difficult to go from 90 to 91. The higher up on that scale you are, the more chance you have to rank for keywords on Google. So it's really, really important to build links, and I see it time and time again. People have fantastic websites, but they do not do any kind of link building at all, and it's so crucial to do that. So when we're thinking about link building, or we're thinking about content on the website, we're always thinking about relevance. Okay, so how relevant is this website that is linking to me? How relevant is my content to what my users are looking for? How relevant am I to the location I'm based in? You know, am I relevant to my audience? So if my audience speak French, do I have an option on my website for French? It's really, really kind of basic stuff when you think about it, but actually it can get quite granular. So whether it's local or national SEO, you really need to think about your relevance, and you need to think about two things. So you need to think about topical relevance. So how relevant is my information on my website for my users? Do I cover the topics in depth? Do I have a really great page that's better than my competition, with maybe an FAQ section with lots of sections on that kind of website? Locational relevance. So am I mentioning the cities that I cover if I'm a local business? Am I mentioning where I'm based? Have I got a contact us page that has a map embedded of where we're based? Do we use local business schema? So many little things that can help just turn the dials up on topical and locational relevance. And it's really simple things that you can do yourself. So we have a client, and I'll show you the stats a little bit later, but in a 1 year period, they generated £500,000 worth of revenue through local SEO, because we got the topical relevance right and we got the locational relevance right. And we built links and citations that were quality. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. If you get these fundamentals and these basics right, you can flourish online and do really, really well. So what I'm going to show you next is a real strategy that we used, the effect that it had on a business. And actually this is a kind of side business that we launched in the agency a few years ago. But it just shows you how you can acquire links and how you can use really awesome content to acquire those links. So step one. So we created some great content. Okay, it was visually interesting. It had lots and lots of information in there. It played on emotion. So if you want engagement with your content, if you want to acquire links, think about emotions. Does it make people happy? Does it make people sad? Does it make people angry? Because if you can play on those emotions, your content has a much, much better chance to go viral and attract more links. If you don't stir up those emotions and think about those emotions, even if it's an emotion of nostalgia, for example, thinking, oh, that's really cool. It makes you feel happy. It makes you feel warm inside for this particular piece of content. But you could do something that's a bit more stark. So also thinking about how relevant it is for the times. So Black Lives Matter at the moment. How could you make your website or content relevant to that, to stir up emotion, to make people think, right, oh, actually, this is a problem. You know, for us in the agency, could we do a study about the ethnicity of people in our industry and how it's underrepresented, for example? It stirs up emotion. It makes people angry. It makes people think, why is this the case? And it makes it shareable. So it gets you more content, gets you more visits, and can drive more inquiries and more sales for your website. Now, another tactic that we used for this particular campaign is what I like to call vanity content. All right, so mentioning brands. So we mentioned Roland, Lindrum was one, Native Instruments. There's a few on here who are all brands of drum machines. So by creating this content which mentioned those brands, they then shared that content to their audience because it's free content for them and it's publicity for them. Okay, so just think about vanity content. Can I make a piece of content that then appeals to a particular audience or a particular set of clients? It was really shareable because of the format as an infographic. And most importantly, and this is all should always be at the forefront when you're thinking about content and generating links, we gave them value. So if you're not giving your customers value, or the people who are writing the blog post editorials, then why should they link back to you? Because they know how important link building is and links, and they know what you're trying to do with that piece of content to acquire them. So just think about value and think about what they would value. For this piece of content, they could repurpose it. Some editorials cut it up into different pieces. But they all linked back to us because we gave them that value. So it's really, really important. Step 2. So this is in the particular Google Doc, but we created an Excel document, okay, of editors and magazines that we wanted to share the content. So we were lucky on this part of content that we already had some relationships with some of these editorials. So we already knew them, but we didn't know the editors personally. They just wrote about this company and I logged this. So all we did was we made an Excel document that had the URL of the website that we were trying to attract, the editor's details to email them, and the piece of content that they've shared in the past. Now we appealed for the editors particular and the people who wrote the articles because they already have that relationship, they already recognise the brand for us. If we were to just choose any old random one, I don't think the engagement would have been as good. So just think about that when you're creating your list. If you're doing this blind and for the first time, then don't worry if you don't get tons of engagement, but you can start building this up as you go. And most importantly, I was talking about relevance earlier. They were all relevant to our audience. They're all music editorials, this particular one. So they wanted to share our content. Okay, we didn't go for irrelevant ones. We didn't go for like the Daily Mail, etc. We went for a really niche audience with this. So step 3, after we did the document, we emailed them. So you can use services such as HubSpot to do this. So you can import it in and use the Excel document as a mail merge. So you can change out the names. It takes out all the kind of manual emailing, if you like. And what we said is they can use our content for free, but we'd love a link in return. So we were really straightforward with what our intentions were. Look, we've got this fantastic piece of content, but please link to us. Because if you don't ask it many times, you don't get, especially with these editorials. So it's really, really important. Many of these publications are dying out for great content. So give them the great content, okay, that they're looking for, that they're dying for. Like I said before, give them content which causes debate, which stirs emotions. So these are actually results, and these are only the results that were linked directly back to our piece of content. So 743 Facebook engagements, which link directly to our website, 23 Twitter shares, Pinterest, the number of links actually a lot more, but over 800 engagements just on links that link to our website. Many of the big manufacturers did their own posts, which linked to their own websites and the editorials. So the actual engagement number was a heck of a lot higher than that, a few thousand, which was great. And what effect did this have on our traffic for this particular website, which was a new website, by the way? Well, as you can see by the big hump there, we had a huge spike in traffic, and we actually had an increase in sales as well because of this. With this one piece of content, so history of drum machines and some going to the homepage too. So if you can get into the habit of creating this really engaging content for editors and thinking about it and thinking, how can I be relevant in these times, especially, you can acquire these links, this traffic, which can drive sales for your business. Think about that value. And I think there was over 30 links generated from this one piece of content. So it took us around a day to put this together. And we got 30 really high quality links. Now, how we were talking before about the value of links, and they're not all the same. All these links are really, really great websites like Mixmag, for example, which has a really high domain authority. 6am group, audiopodcast.co.uk. Some really, really great websites which link to our content. So when you're thinking about link building, don't just think about it as a linear thing. Think about how you can create some content to generate those links. You can get the low-hanging fruit, like the citations, quite easily yourself, and you can do that online. If anyone is interested, I can link in the chat a little bit later on with some links that show you what citations to build. But it's really important to get some really good, engaging content out there. So next, I'm just going to talk about Google My Business and local SEO. Now, Google My Business can be quite particular for different businesses and business categories. You can get different parts that are available. If you're a restaurant, let's say, to a kind of a marketing agency, you've got different boxes and things to fill out. Now, if you did want a look around on Google My Business, I'm more than happy to do that and share my screen as I work through the dashboard, which might help you just to demystify how to use it, if you like. But I'm just going to talk briefly about the 3 main ranking factors for local SEO and Google My Business, which nice big prominence, relevance, and location, or proximity sometimes. And Google have actually said in an article that these are the 3 main ranking factors. So we're going to go through what they are and then how we can improve them to improve our local SEO. So prominence. So we talked about the off-page stuff previously in this presentation. And prominence is essentially that. So it's how good your off-page SEO is. So how many branded searches do you have? What Google tries to do, it tries to replicate how popular a business is offline and tries to replicate that online. So usually big businesses have tons of links, so it makes it nice and easy for Google. But what Google wants to do is give its customers the most relevant results possible. Okay. And if you're getting a search result full of kind of poor websites and poor user experiences, you're probably not going to use Google again. Take Bing, for example. I'm sure we've all accidentally used Bing when we've installed things on our computer and go, oh my God, it's just so frustrating to use because it doesn't give you the results you're looking for. Always remember that Google is a money-making company. So the value of the results that they show to users is for their own benefit, really, because it keeps users using the platform. Okay, it retains the customer base. So you have to think about how you can build a brand, and building a brand is difficult. That can be a whole webinar in itself. I think Rich may have done something on branding, I think, already, or if not, it could be one that we could do.
What we should do, to be honest. But,
yeah, I think it's really important actually building a brand, because a lot of people don't know where to start with it, I think. So being able to build a really powerful brand that is searched a lot is really, really important. So you can increase your prominence by a few things. So think about offline advertising. Think about building your brand. Okay, so you get more branded searches. Build links, like we've discussed. Build citations. So that's things like Yelp, Facebook, LinkedIn. Make sure all the information is consistent on those. Build a reputation. So reviews. You know, be the #1 name in your industry for your service. Really, really important. And lastly, build a social presence. So I know we're doing something on Facebook and Facebook ads. Make sure your social presence is strong and consistent, and that people are recognizing your page. You're getting a lot of likes on your pages or follows, because all that adds to your prominence. What you're showing to Google there is that you're important and people like to engage with your brand and your business. So Google rank is higher. The next one is relevance, and we've already touched on this in the presentation. And there's 2 different types, like we discussed, topical relevance and how relevant you are to a location. So you can increase it by building local landing pages. Create better content on your website that's more relevant to what people are looking for. You know, if people are looking for skips, then have a page about skips. Yeah, if they're looking for skips in Murfield, build a page for skips in Murfield. You know, that's a really simple way to look at it in a granular way. But just think about how you can build those local pages and local for those services if you're serving a local area. And think about how you can keep it nice and easy to use. Okay, keep that crawl depth down. Fill out all of your information on your Google My Business profile. I see this time and time again, where people do not put their opening hours on the Google My Business. They're not updating if they're open or not during coronavirus. They're not doing a COVID update. They're not uploading photographs to the GMB. They've not done a service area. There's so many things that you can do on your Google My Business. Make the most of it, because the more information you give to Google, the more you fill out, the higher you'll rank, because the more they'll trust that information is correct. Think about local citations and links. So local newspapers. So if you're based in Bradford, can you get a link from the Telegraph and Argus? Can you get a mention? Are you part of any local scheme, any fundraising scheme? So I know Rich is really good at building those relationships with local authorities and grant people like you, Rich, with funding. And many times they do PR pieces, don't they, in editorials, about how that money was used and how it's kind of generated jobs, etc. But that increases your relevance, okay? Increases your local relevance particularly. And structure your people around what people want. So do some keyword research. A free tool that you can use is Uber Suggest. And it takes its data from Google Keyword Planner. So it's a really great tool. Now, there is some give and take with it because it's free. That was my phone, sorry. But just think about what people are searching for and not what you just want to push, okay? And lastly is location and proximity. So this is quite difficult to change. And when I talk to people about this, they go, well, you know, what can I do about this? And what some people do is they make what's called lead generation Google My Business profiles. But Google have actually recently changed last week their terms and conditions around that. So be careful if you're using that as a tactic, because Google will remove them. But location is important to local SEO, particularly in your Google My Business profile. So you increase your relevance and your prominence. Location becomes less important. So your area that you can rank actually becomes bigger. It's called a GeoGrid. So we have a tool where we can test for certain search terms, and you can see where you rank in the local pack based on proximity, which is really, really cool. Now, if you're just starting the business or you're thinking about relocating or moving, if you serve a city like Leeds, for example, choose a central location if it's possible. I know it's expensive, but it can help your local SEO, particularly if the area on the map at the top is zoomed into that location. Google already sees that location is relevant to what people are looking for. Add service areas on your GMB and be specific with this. So if you're what we would call a hyper-local business, so if you serve a 5-mile radius, then add postcodes. Be as in-depth as you can and granular. Don't just put Bradford. Put, BD2 if you serve in Bradford, Leeds, LS10, whatever it may be. Be really, really specific with it, because you'll gain a lot from that in terms of ranking. Local landing pages. So, we were talking then about postcodes. Could you have an area on your website which talks about postcodes? Could you have local landing pages about different areas or postcodes? Could it increase your locational relevance? If you're something like a plumber, would it be useful for people to see which locations you cover? Absolutely it would. So put it on your website. It's good for your users. Encourage, and this is an interesting one that people are not necessarily aware of. You probably think it's like Big Brother now, but encourage customers to upload photos of your products or your service. Now, when you upload a product, it includes what's called EXIF data, and the EXIF data includes stuff like your longitude and latitude, the time when the picture was taken. They can even tie it to a potential location. And if you have a Google Pixel phone, you'll actually see all this information inside. They're quite transparent with it. when people upload these onto your Google My Business profile or your website, that EXIF data is still on there. Now, Google do say that they strip out this EXIF data, but I'm 100% sure that they analyze it before, just to see if you do actually cover these areas that you're saying to Google that you cover. You know, if you're uploading a picture and it's got EXIF data 60 miles away and you're supposed to only cover a 5-mile radius, then what does that show to Google? Well, it asks questions, really, doesn't it, about your legitimacy as a business. So these are some real results. So this is for a 1-year period, June to June. And this is what local SEO can do for you. So 530,000 gross, so turnover. 3,506 calls through the Google My Business profile. A huge amount of calls through the Google My Business profile. And on the left is the website that get most of the traffic through local SEO. So those bookings and phone calls are all from doing local SEO. It's so important, and there's so much potential. So especially with coronavirus and what's going on at the moment, you need to make sure that you're capitalising on things such as your local SEO strategy really, really early to capitalise on it, because it does take time. Be prepared for it to take some time to see some results. But when you do see some results, it is well worth the time and the investment. Okay, because once it's ranking, then unless a big Google update comes out or your competitors start investing more, then you're pretty much guaranteed to stay up there. And you don't need to pay Google a lot in PPC and Google Ads, which is what we're on to now. So Google Ads, it can be a really, really daunting tool to use for business owners or managers or marketing managers even. It can be very complex, especially when it's in expert mode instead of the AdWords Express. And if not set up correctly, it can really burn through money and budget very, very, very quickly. So what I've done is I've compiled some tips. It's hard for me to show screenshots of Google campaigns because there's some kind of sensitive data on there in terms of strategy and keyword targeting, etc. But if you do want to have a call, possibly with me afterwards, or a chat about it, I can go into it in more detail for you. But step one is to use the keyword planner tool to estimate ROI. Okay, so this is a free tool that you can use. It's part of the Google Ads package. And what it will show you is kind of the graph that you'll see kind of curved like this, with the number of conversions and then with cost and maximum cost per click based on the keywords you select. It's a really, really great tool. Make the most of it. Now, what you will need to work out with this, I haven't put value per conversion in this one in particular, but if you do have a value per conversion, we'll go through how to actually calculate that. Then it makes it much more accurate. Now, the average conversion rate is around 3%. Online, we have some clients on Google Ads which convert at around 11, but that's well above the curve. So when you're calculating this, base it off 3%. If you look at average conversion rate per industry, there's some really great studies out there which show you actually the difference and discrepancies, but they roughly range from 2 to 6% conversion rate. So CTR, which is also called click-through rate, or marketing jargon. Your click-through rate can vary quite wildly. So as you've seen on the piece here, it has a CTR of 10%. So you can increase your click-through rate by improving the quality of your ads. Okay, so more people want to click on your advert than the others. You can also improve click-through rate by putting more budget into it. But as you see in the previous slide, you do get to a point where it essentially flatlines. So it's no use to put any more budget into that specific keyword because you'd not rank any higher. So depending on your budget, you'd sit somewhere on that curve. Okay, if you really wanted to just dominate and throw a ton of money on it, then you could. But the amount of conversions you get would flatline at some point. Now, this is something that people overlook and don't actually realise. So you can reduce your CPC or cost per click by having a good quality score. So inside of Google Ads, you'll see a little score out of 10 next to your keywords. Now that's called a quality score, and your quality score is determined by number one, the quality of your advert that you're showing to users and how relevant it is to the keywords that they're targeting. And number two, how relevant is the website that the ad is going to. Okay, so if you're selling lemons, does the advert mention lemons, and does the website mention lemons? You know, if your website mentions oranges instead of lemons, then it's probably not going to be very relevant to users. You know, really kind of simple way to think about it. It's also determined by how much budget, but you can actually save budget and your cost per click by having a good quality score. So a great ad and a good website. So really do think about that. And this is a little formula you can use. So we talked previously about conversion value, and this really depends on if you're looking at an immediate ROI, or if you're looking at a long-term and how much a client is worth to you over 5 years or 4 years, for example, or whether you're looking at just that one transaction and how much they're worth for that one transaction. So for this particular calculation, we're saying the average deal revenue is £3,000, profit margin of 45%, and leads which convert to a deal at 20%. So your value per conversion will be £270. So 3,000 times 45% times 20%. So if you get an inquiry onto your website, you can say that inquiry is worth £270, and you can track that on your Google campaign. So then you can see, number one, your return on investment, your ROI, but then also things like return on ad spend. You can actually see then the quality of your leads. So it opens up a ton of things that you can do in terms of analysis and looking at this. If you had 10 inquiries but none actually converted, then maybe it's not the best keywords we're looking at. So you can change and alter your campaign, but you need to track your conversions, and you need to track your leads. What we're going to do next week as part of the Marketing Data for Impact webinar, I'll be showing how to actually set up a conversion. So I'll be going through it with Google Tag Manager and through a website. So I will show you step by step how to track, number one, phone calls when people click onto your website and click the phone icon. How to connect data sources, Google My Business and things like that, Google Analytics. And then also contact form submissions. So when people submit a contact form, how do we track that? You know, and how do we track different values? Let's say if they choose different options. Now, another thing to think about with ads is remarketing. So as well as displaying and PPC ads in the search network, we need to think about remarketing. So when a user leaves our website, what are we doing to get that user back on our website and convert? So you can actually set up criteria for this. So for instance, if you're an e-commerce website, you can set if they've looked at a certain product, if you're a service based, if they've looked at a certain service, or if they've been on your website for X amount of seconds or minutes. Now, remarketing doesn't just have to be Google ads. You can use Facebook, LinkedIn, Google, I think Twitter even do remarketing ads, so tons. And the companies who are really, really good at this are Amazon. Amazon is fantastic at this. And if you don't know quite what remarketing is at the moment, it's those ads that kind of seem to stalk you online. So you've looked at that new lawnmower on Amazon, and then on Facebook it seems to come up on the right hand side, and you go, it's a bit strange. And that's done through remarketing and a little thing called a pixel. So for Facebook it's a Facebook pixel, and for Google it's a Google tag. And remarketing is incredibly cheap. Okay, so on average it's about half as expensive as search ads, and you've already engaged with that person. So the more times that they interact, and we did actually discuss this on the last webinar, Rich, about engagement. I think it was it 8 times that people have to engage with your brand before they make a buying decision?
On average, yeah.
Yeah, so remarketing can help you get up to that number. And you can remarket to them in a variety of ways. But one way is to think of that value. So what we discussed previously about link building, think about what value you can give with remarketing. You know, is it an article? Is it an editorial? Is it a voucher code for them to use, for example, if it's an abandoned checkout? And I did quite like this illustration because it shows it quite nicely. So a visitor comes onto your website, a visitor leaves, then you can show an advert on Facebook, on Google Ads, etc. And you can get that person to then come back onto your website to make that buying decision. And you can do this multiple times as well. It's worth bearing in mind. Now, there's another thing to think about with remarketing, and that is GDPR. So you cannot remarket to people without their express permission. So if they've not accepted to a cookie policy or a GDPR policy, then you shouldn't be remarketing to those people. You can get into trouble for doing so. So just bear that in mind. But you can do some great stuff with remarketing, such as using mailing lists and all sorts. The options are endless. Some fantastic stuff. So just some final actionable tips for you to take away with Google Ads. So number one is segment your ad groups. So we talked about relevance. We talked about how you can get your CPC down. You can do that by segmenting your ad groups. So if you sell green lemons and yellow lemons, have different ad groups for your green lemons than your yellow lemons. Your quality score will increase because you've been very specific, and your budget will go much further, okay, with your ads. Number two, accurately track all types of conversions. So calls, contact form submissions, any kind of engagement, maybe a social follow even, you can track if that's can eventually turn into a lead for you. Create multiple ads inside of Google Ads. So don't just create one or two ads, create 3 or 4 to get the most effective one, and use the extensions that are available. 4 is a really important one, and the amount of times I have conversations with clients about this. Don't change your daily budget often, okay? Because it can lead to overspend. How Google calculates daily budget is absolutely ridiculous and really frustrating. For instance, if you were to up your budget from £30 to £50 with 10 days left in the month, Google can overspend by up to 2 times. So they can spend up to £100 per day on ads, because what it'll try to do is get you up to that £50 per day. So if it's a 30-day month, it'll try to get you up to a £1,500 spend for the month. So just try and think about your spends. Don't change your budget often. If you leave it static, then it's going to be fine. It's not going to overspend as much. If you're going in and constantly changing budgets, that's when you're going to have these problems. Number 5, create a negative keyword list. So this will vary whether you do this for the whole campaign or whether you do this per ad group, depending on what you are selling. But negative keywords are really important. So it's the words you do not want to show up in Google. So if you were selling gloves, you don't maybe want to show for vinyl gloves if you're selling driving gloves. So you can put those in a negative and you don't waste budget paying for those keywords. So that can really help save you budget. 6, take advantage of grants and vouchers. Okay, so we talked about this previously, but charities can get $10,000 free per month on Google Ads, which is huge, and it can equate to thousands of visits to your website, lots of donations, lots of engagement for your charity or your brand. So just think about that. Google are also releasing ad grants for people who used Google Ads last year. So they've been a little bit funny about how they've handed out this funding. But it will be coming into accounts shortly. They're just working out the logistics of it. But if you sign up with an agency as well, a lot of the time you'll get a free voucher if it's the first time you've used Google Ads. So a lot of the time it's £75 free when you spend £75, for example. But make the most out of them. They're there to be used. And just one final one, which I didn't put on there, is do not use broad match keywords ever. AdWords Express can be really bad for that because the matching is terrible to the keywords. So use phrase match and exact match on your keywords if possible, because you get much, much better results. You'll get less volume and less impressions on your ads, but you'll get a lot more engagement. Your budget will go further, and you won't waste budget, most importantly. And that is me. So I'd like to thank you all for listening. My contact details are there if you'd like to get in touch and discuss what we've talked about today. If you have any questions, I've been more than happy to answer them, whether it's about SEO or PPC. And yeah, thank you very much.